Elieen Chang's Half a Lifelong Romance is a book that I finished yesterday, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this book and why I think it's very good. So, Elieen Chang wrote this novel in 1948. The novel is set in 1930s Imperial China, some years before the war with Japan, that eventually also features in the novel towards the end. But Half a Lifelong Romance that starts out with one of our really two main characters, Shi Jun, and I apologize for probably butchering some Chinese pronunciation quite a lot in this review, but it can't be helped. Um, Shi Jun, looking back on his, you can say, early romance, early infatuation, and brief relationship that he had in his youth with a colleague of his, Mang Shen. And as we get into the sort of story, we have Shi Jun, who is a young engineer working at a factory. He meets Mang Shen, who is a factory worker, a typist, I think. Mang Shen comes from a different family background than Shi Jun. They are more poor. They live together, the whole family, in a relatively small house, and Mang Shen is one of, if not the only primary at this point, um, caretaker for her whole family. Um, they fall in love, but they don't want to upset their family, or they don't want to hinder their career, especially Shi Jun's career. So they sort of agree to just wait with establishing a family and getting married and so on. So for the first few hundred pages of this 380 page long novel, it's a fairly slow burn romance, courtship, boy meets girl, boy likes girl, girl likes boy. Pretty standard novel. But then in the middle of it, it really takes a dramatic turn. So we have Shi Jun, we have Man Chen, we have uh, Xiu Hui, who is another worker, another engineer at the company, and a friend of both of them. And as we learn more about the characters, we see more of the complexities in their family situations. We learn that Man Chen has an older sister who, for many years, was supporting the whole family. She had to be what's referenced as a taxi dancer, basically a prostitute, to earn enough money to put her younger siblings through school and supporting her elders. Um, but Man Chen finds, Man Lu, which is the name of the older sister, finds a new husband, and that husband becomes rich through some more or less shady business deals. But without going into too many spoilers, Man Chen is a victim of a terrible, devastating event or crime or action taken against her, and set in this 1930s imperial China, due to culture, family situations, economy. She's sort of forced to basically not do anything about the um, crime that happened to her, and essentially to accept it, and to basically um, even marry the person who did it to her. So it becomes a very tragic story. There is deceit, there is lies, there is um, broken promises, broken dreams from this young generation of people in China. And it's very well written by Elieen Chang. It's very slow in the beginning, but once the action picks up, the pace picks up. There's a lot of clever narrative techniques, and all of this sort of slow scene setting that we have in the beginning really pays off. And I think one of the things that Elieen Chang does very well is writing the female characters in this novel. The female characters are complex, nuanced, and they're portrayed incredibly realistically, and it's the kind of novel that really leaves a strong emotional impact. I don't want to go into spoiler territory here more than I already have, but if you think this is just a silly romance, or not silly because there's nothing wrong with romance, but this is more a very sad tragedy that is sort of centered around a romantic situation. It reminded me of a couple of other books. It reminded me in some way of Junichi Tanisaki's The Makioka Sisters. That's a Japanese novel. The writing is very different, but there are some similar thematics around, um, you know, Japan in the 30s in the case of Tanisaki, or in this case, China in the 30s. Both are time periods where both countries are undergoing turmoil, cultural changes, and a sort of turning point or break away from traditional values and turning more towards Western values, for lack of a better word, and a young generation that's feeling trapped and feeling hindered and sort of burdened by the requirements or the traditions or the family duties that the more conservative older generation is representing. It's also a domestic story similar to this one. In Makioka Sisters, we follow four sisters. Here we follow more or less four friends. And it has a lot to do with family duties, obligations, and slice of life, daily events, going over to friends for dinner, what to wear, who talks with who thinks what of what, and it's very sort of domestic and mundane in that sense. Um, but it also, just like in Tanisaki's Makioka Sisters, you have one of the sisters, which is a very insertive, strong character that sort of goes against the flow, and you have the same case here with a young female protagonist that is also um, a strong and strong-willed and self-sacrificing but assertive woman. And in that sense, she's acting a bit like a Chinese Jane Eyre in some way. It also reminded me to some extent of Murakami's Norwegian Wood, in the sense that you have a love triangle, a sad love triangle, and a tragic ending. And it's not similar in the details, but the sort of overall feel about the novel is in some ways fairly similar. So if these are the kind of novels that you like, either something like Jane Eyre with a strong, assertive female lead character, um, or sort of a tragic, sad, emotional, domestic story like Norwegian Wood, or a very culturally driven exposition like the Makioda Sisters by Junichi Tanizaki, then there's a good chance that you might like Elieen Chang's Half a Lifelong Romance. And it's a book that I hear almost nothing about. There's almost nothing on the internet about it. There is no videos, there's no reviews. So it's a bit of a hidden gem, I would say. Elieen Chang has written a few other books, and this is a Penguin modern classic. And she has two other novels that is also published under this imprint, and she has a handful of other novels that's also been translated to English. But she doesn't seem to be in the zeitgeist at all. I don't know if she ever was, but I think this is a good novel for the reasons that I mentioned. And if you like this sort of thing, you could consider checking this out. Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much for listening.